Hi, Kyle Dynarex. I just saw you last week. What brings you in today?
I'm wondering what my options are for my diagnosis since I only have 6 months to live.
If you wish, you can stop eating and drinking, or if your pain is extreme, there's an option of receiving palliative sedation, which will make you unconscious. If you find yourself in a situation where you need life-sustaining treatment, you can withhold it or take it away at any time. There's also aid in dying.
There are currently aid in dying laws in California, Colorado, District of Columbia, Hawaii, Maine, New Jersey, Oregon, Vermont, Washington, and Montana. The name of the law passed varies from the 10 different jurisdictions. Medical aid in dying laws was legal in Oregon in 1997 and was the only state that legally had it before 2008.
I want to know more about aid in dying.
What would you like to know?
What exactly is it?
It allows physicians to prescribe life-ending medication under the law. A patient has to qualify and voluntarily request it.
That our language that we use about these issues really is powerful and is in fact very important. And it can be very loaded. So if somebody is in support of this issue and they might say that they are supporting dignity in dying, yes, that is definitely giving a more positive position on the issue, and it's going to influence how people interpret the issue. However, if you're trying to change perceptions too about suicide, you might want to argue that it's good to keep that in there and destigmatize it.
What makes you eligible to request this medication?
There are many things that a patient needs to pass to be considered for this option.
The patient has to be diagnosed with a terminal illness that will lead to death within 6 months, which has to be confirmed by 2 physicians. They have to be 18 years of age or older, mentally competent, and the patient must be a resident of one of the states that has the aid in dying laws. Each area has a certain way to prove identification. The patient can show residency by showing a state driver's license, documents showing they rent or own a residential property in the state, a state voter registration, and a recent state tax return. Showing proof of renting or owning property is not acceptable in New Jersey, but people can use any other government record that the physician believes demonstrates the person's residency. The D.C. Department of Health has set rules for patients to prove residency in the District of Columbia by submitting any 2 from the following list. There is no rule for the minimum length of residency needed in a state before being able to request aid in dying. In Hawaii, mental evaluation is mandatory. In the other jurisdictions, it is up to the physician to determine if the patient's judgment is impaired in any way. For example, having depression or any mental illness means their minds can be impaired and would have to get an evaluation to qualify.
The individual who is requesting this medication needs to be able to self-administer it and ingest the prescription. This is a precaution against a patient being coerced in some way to take the medication. They must qualify first and then go through a time-consuming process before it can be available to the patient.
What's the process?
Patients must make an oral request of the medication at any time after qualifying. Then comes the waiting period. A patient must wait a minimum of 15 days to make the second oral request, but in Hawaii, they must wait a minimum of 20 days. The patient must fill out a written request. The written request must be witnessed by 2 individuals. One of those individuals can't be related to the patient at all, entitled to any portion of their estate, or an employee of the healthcare facility caring for them. Any oral and written requests can be canceled at any time. The physician must wait 48 hours from the time of receiving the written request to write the prescription, but there's no waiting time in Colorado or California.
What type of medicine is used?
There are a few different types and the prices vary.
The medication is not cheap. The powdered form of pentobarbital costs between $400 to $500. The medication secobarbital, the brand name being Seconal, under the law costs $3,000 to $5,000. Since costs for the medications were expensive, a mixture of medicine was developed by physicians in Washington state.
I want to think about it, but since I can take back my oral request at any time, I would like to do that now.
So physician-assisted suicide and issues surrounding euthanasia, voluntary euthanasia, involuntary euthanasia are very controversial for some of the same reasons that abortion and abortion policies are controversial. They involve very personal issues about life, death, dignity, freedom, autonomy, our right over our own bodies. In addition, there are many religious issues that often arise in these situations because most of the world's major religions have beliefs about these issues, and religion involves issues that are very close to our hearts and our everyday lives. These issues become very controversial. In addition, depending on the history of the country involved, there are all different sorts of issues. For example, in Germany, they do not allow physician-assisted suicide, in part because of the history of the Holocaust. In the Netherlands, they do allow physician-assisted suicide, in part because they have not had any history as Germany did. In the United States, because we respect diversity and plurality and freedom, this is in part why we have these issues arise, is because you have values that are coming into conflict with one another, where we might believe in the sanctity of life and human dignity, and those values come into conflict with the freedom that we have over our bodies.